Okay, so I'm always excited to spend a little time with my friends, and I have an international friend joining me now. Originally from Nigeria, I want you all to meet Mo Lanre Akinison.
Hi.
She just moved from Nigeria to the UK. Mo, please help people get to know you a little bit better and just tell us a little about yourself.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. It's always a delight to meet with you, Amy, since the last time we met. And I'm so excited. Like you said, I originally, used to be in Nigeria and now I'm in the United Kingdom. I work with a leading FMCG organization as the head of Leadership and Culture Center of Expertise with presence across 28 countries in Africa and in Europe. I'm married. I've got three gorgeous kids, and I'm a member of the John Maxwell team. So it's a pleasure to be here with your friends.
Well, you know what? It's just that John Maxwell team connection. We actually met in 2016 when you
Absolutely.
were certified and just happened. I like to say that happened because I don't believe anything happens by accident.
Absolutely.
You
I'm so
were assigned to
excited.
the table that I got to be a mentor of. And I was so excited if you would just share a little bit about your journey because when you invested in yourself to leave Nigeria and
Mhm.
come get that certification in the United States, it happened in Orlando, Florida. That was no small task for you. If you could help people understand some of the obstacles you had to come to be able to invest in yourself.
hmm I mean, it's such a powerful story for me personally because looking back now, it was one of the decisions, I think I took a couple of years back that have actually, made the biggest impact, in my life today. So just to backtrack a little bit, I graduated as a chemical engineering student from one of the leading universities in Nigeria. But my grades weren't so good, right? I finished with a second class lower degree. But then I remember that at the time I was leaving college, one of the lecturers said to us to come up with a 5-year plan. And one of the things I said to myself, that I wanted to achieve in my career was to work with the best organizations. I wanted to work with multinationals. So even though I was finishing with a second class lower, I decided I was going to have a world class career. And so each year I tried to invest in myself, acquiring global certifications in my field. But in 2016, I stumbled on the John Maxwell, no, it was in 2015 actually. I stumbled on the John Maxwell certification and I'm like, okay, tell me more about it. I saw the program, I saw the synopsis, and it just kind of fits into what I would love to do for the rest of my life. And then I got on a call with the program coordinator, and then she told me it was going to be $5,000. I had never made that kind of investment in myself. In fact, that amount exceeded all the savings I had in the world at the time. And so it was
Even
crazy.
your engineering degree.
Absolutely. You know what I mean? And so I was contemplating, how do I justify $5,000? The highest I had paid for any development program was $500. And so that was going to be like 10 times anything I'd ever done. But then I had some reflections. Are you worth it? Is your future deserving of this investment? Do you think you're worth you're worth that investment? And I reflected, I said, you know what, people take loans to buy cars, people take loans to buy properties, people take loans to do stuff. Can't you take a loan? And the reason why they do is because they believe there's some form of returns on the investment, that the only reason why you will not make this investment is when you say to yourself, there's not going to be any returns. And I said, no, there will be. And so I took the plunge and I took a loan, to make that investment. And I can tell you that not only have I made that money in multiples, right? My life has been changed, my network has been changed, and I'm the better for it. So yeah.
But you know what, Mo? That was just kind of the first step. That was just to be able to be in the program. Then you had to come all the way to the United States. You were able to do coursework online, but to
Absolutely.
really be certified, you had to find a way to get airfare, visa, passport, however that works, hotel
Absolutely.
accommodations.
Can I shock you? Now,
Please.
let me tell you. So there's this thing about international students. When you live in the United States and you earn the money in dollars, you have no problem about foreign exchange. We have to deal with foreign exchange. So I can tell you that at the time I was registering for the John Maxwell program, the exchange rate of my currency to the United States was 160 to $1, right? Oh yes. So I had the chance or the opportunity, absolutely. I had the opportunity to pay at once or pay installments, you know what I mean? But then I said, you know what? I don't want instrumental. I want everything and I want it now. And I'm glad I took that decision because in 2 weeks, our economy degenerated, and what was exchanging for 160 went up to 360. And so that means my investment almost tripled in a space of 2 weeks, but I took the decision early. And so I don't know sometimes you want to take a decision and you just keep procrastinating, like, okay, you know what, maybe later. There is an opportunity cost. Something is, you're losing something by not deciding now. And the beautiful part of my story was that after making that investment, after taking the loan, I won an award at work. And that award covered every other expense, that I could have bothered about, and it was just so amazing. And I learned a lesson from that as well. Sometimes you're making lifetime decisions, long-term decisions, just based on your current situation. And that's so limiting, right? It is so limiting because sometimes you take that move and everything around you begins to align. And I guess that was what happened in my situation. And I'm so excited. I paid back my loan and then I had excess for my trip and then my savings. So,
Mo, that is such an extraordinary story of just, and really understanding the exchange rate and
mhm,
how, so really, from someone watching this in the United States, even the initial $5,000 investment was sort of like a $15,000 investment because of that
absolutely,
exchange rate.
absolutely,
So that's a tremendous amount of money to bet on yourself. And our mentor, John Maxwell, always says the best person to bet on is yourself.
absolutely, absolutely.
So we're talking about the dirty F word. And you'll laugh, it was way back then. You may remember we had to do table topic conversations, and mine
Yeah,
was on the dirty F word.
true that.
And I'm just laughing now that so many years later, I've been sharing that with John Maxwell team members that now I'm writing a full book on it, and so honored that you would share and be a chapter in that book. I
Mhm,
want to get to that. Um, a couple of dirty F word failure lessons that you've learned in your life. And the
mhm.
first one we talked about was facing your failure. If you would share a little bit and help us understand that.
Right. Thank you so much, Amy. It's interesting because, when you reached out to me that we're going to tell, some story around this dirty F word, my mind went back to the table talk we had back then in Orlando. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I didn't know that, some years down the line we'll be doing this. And, talking about facing the failure, I realized that, I went through a situation in my life and it had to do with um, a relationship I had with a guy, I liked. I'm careful now. I don't know if I loved him. I was very sure about my commitment and all of that, but it was quite an abusive relationship. Not physical abuse, but it was an emotional and psychological abuse. That was the kind of experience I had. Now, this was someone I had trusted. This was someone I expected a lot from, considering the fact that I thought we shared the same values, respect for people, love for God, and a couple of other things. So when I started to see the psychological abuse or the verbal abuse, I didn't want to believe that those things were happening for real. Like, I used to blame myself, like maybe I overstepped certain boundaries. Maybe, I just used to find an excuse to justify why those things were happening. So when the abuse started, I started to blame myself. And I didn't realize that what I was doing was, not facing the problem. I realized that what I was doing was I was living in denial that those things were happening. So I became very apologetic. And so when things happen between us, I will be the first person to say, you know what, I'm sorry, even when I wasn't at fault. And so I ran away from facing this for 4 years. And what I did not realize was that it had damaged my self esteem. So I relied on him for validation because each time he abused me verbally, I wanted him to say something nice. So I kept going the extra mile. And the interesting thing about, the abuser is they are never satisfied. There's really nothing you're going to do to make the situation get any better. Why? Because they have things they have to deal with. So I kept chasing to meet up with a certain standards that were never agreed, and I was never going to meet anyways. So that really crushed me. That really allowed the whole situation to take a toll on me. And until I got out of it, I did not realize how much earlier I could have faced the situation, either by getting out or addressing it, rather than being apologetic about things that were not my fault. And another thing was, he had said we should keep it a secret, we shouldn't tell people about it. And so because I wasn't speaking up, I wasn't healing, I was bottling a lot of things up. So there was no way I could help myself. I was the one being abused. So I was all wrapped up in that world, and it was bad. So looking back, I realized that I could have done it differently much earlier, by facing the situation squarely.
Mo, I think that's such a lesson for women all around the globe. There
Mhm.
are many American women in this situation, but I do think that perhaps in your culture, as you and I chatted before we started recording a little bit, your culture may put more respect on the male than on the female. So do you think that that added to the what made it so difficult for you to get out of this abusive relationship?
You're right about that. I can't deny the fact that, culture played a role as well, because as a woman, in Africa, you're raised to kind of live for the man. So you hear things like growing up, you hear things like, you should learn that because you're going to get married someday. You should know how to do this because you're going to get married someday. And so it just looks like the girls are being groomed for the guys. You know what I mean? So getting into a relationship and then hearing the guy tell you you're not good enough. Oh, then you feel like there's so much work you need to do to meet up with the expectation. So I do agree that culture often plays a role in extended abuse, people being in an extensive abusive relationship, especially in this part of the world, wanting to please the other person, culturally thinking you defer to this person when it comes to relationship. They're never wrong, because you need to submit, you need to be very submissive, you need to make your husband like you. So that was the kind of, upbringing a lot of us had. So I do agree that, that would have played a role in how I handled the situation.
I'm sorry you had to go through that, but I'm so grateful that you would be willing to share it because what I know of you is what I've watched on Facebook over the years since 2016. And I've seen you as this intelligent,
Thank
empowered,
you. Thank you.
working woman who has been interviewed on your national television stations in Nigeria and who has had workshops to empower other women. And you see women
Absolutely.
speaking with us today so confident and so just such a powerful woman that I
Thank
think it means so much and can be so encouraging to others that you weren't always the woman you are today.
you. No, no,
We're all sort of under construction as we live and we learn and we grow
absolutely.
from the failures in our lives.
Absolutely.
And for me, just getting over the fact that it's the dirty F word, uh,
Mhm.
is a way to move forward. But you've got another powerful lesson that I
Mhm.
would love for you to talk some more about. And you shared with me that you had a story around forgiving yourself and others involved in any kind of offense.
Mhm.
Talk to us
Absolutely.
a little bit about that story, please.
Right. So it's still tied to this situation, this abusive relationship I was in. I mentioned very briefly that I was in that relationship for 4 years, and it was quite torturing. I lost my esteem in that relationship, and I did not want to believe that part of me was wasted. So so I remember, it was in 2005. And so I realized that this relationship wasn't going anywhere. We were just dead like that. The relationship was dead. And at that same time, my father took ill. He had cancer of the pancreas. And then I lost him eventually in 2005, March. And it was about the same time this relationship was totally coming to a halt, even though that wasn't what I wanted. So at that point in my life, it felt as if two major events were happening in my life. Losing a relationship I had nurtured, I had sacrificed for, and then losing my father to a deadly disease without any warning, and I took ill. I was pained. I was hurting. It was also about that time I was writing some examinations in school and I wanted to quit. I didn't think I was going to do well in my examination. And I remember reaching out to my course coordinator that I wanted out. And he said to me, he said, "Why do you want to postpone your pain?"
Mm,
Said, "Why postpone your pain? Why procrastinate your pain?"
so powerful.
He said, "You're stronger than you think, and I know you can go through this and come out even stronger." I did not understand what he meant. And then he explained to me further. He said, "If you defer school right now, you will have an extra semester, and you will never forget that the reason why you quitted was as a result of these two incidents." He said, "Why don't you give it your best shot and give it a go?" And so I took his advice, and I knew I needed to heal, but I didn't know how. So I remember I took a lot of time out by myself, and I would cry. I would like scream sometimes because I just needed to get all the pent up emotions out of myself. And so what eventually happened was I realized that I was mad at myself. I was mad that I allowed that abuse to go on for so long. I was mad at myself that I did not walk away before it got bad, and all of the blames I put on myself. But then I'm a believer, and so I prayed to God about it. And then He made me realize that forgiveness was the key to my healing. And then I'm like, how do you talk about forgiveness? I mean, you should be on my side fighting this common enemy. And then He told me, "He is my son as much as you're my daughter. And if he asks me for forgiveness, I'm going to forgive him and I will remember it no more." And for a moment, I was mad at God. Like, why would you forgive such a bad person? And then He said, "Anyone who comes to him, he will not in any way cast away." And I'm like, what? And so I realized, and God said to me, He said, "People act based on how much they know per time. So our actions are a reflection of our knowledge, of our level of, awareness, our level of, information and all." So I realized that it really acted the best it could. I mean, that was the best it could offer. And that was how best I also knew to handle the relationship. So I realized that the real problem was my ignorance.
Oh,
I wasn't stupid. I just was ignorant. I could have done better if I knew better. He could have done better if he knew better. And that was where my healing came from. like when you see people do stupid stuff, it's really, really sometimes because they don't know any better. And so I rather than feel the hurt, the pain, it was more of compassion, like, oh my goodness, how could I have expected so much of this person? If I knew him better, maybe my expectations would have been better managed and all that. And you know what? I didn't have to go into the details with him, but it helped my heart to heal. It helped me to realize that I had a lot of work to do developing myself. I had a lot of work to do getting to understand my purpose, you know what I mean? And so I focused on, and that was when my writing started, Amy. That was when I started to write. And God told me, He said, begin to write to inspire people. He said, begin to do things to inspire people. And that was when I realized that there was a purpose in my pain and everything was going to work together for my good. So that forgiving myself, forgiving everybody involved, led to my growth, led to my transformation. So,
Wow. That's a master class right there, Mo. That's amazing. Here's a question that may sound hard. I don't know. Who
mhm.
was it harder to forgive, yourself or the man who was abusive to you?
Wow, you're right. It's hard because I've never thought about it. I would say that myself. I think all of the pain I had for him was because I felt I was stupid, and I think I was stupid for a very long time. I wondered why, and this is it, right? So back in high school, I used to be an all A student. I mean, I was the kind of girl who would go represent the school in mathematics competition, science competition, and then I get into the university because I was in a relationship that wasn't, healthy. I started to do poorly in my grades. It was bad, Amy. I contemplated suicide.
Oh,
Absolutely. I thought
someone
of
that's smart
ending,
and bright and talented and the light that shines through you.
you know
It's
what?
hard. People wouldn't know that, would never think that of you who knew you today.
Right. Yeah, you're right. So I thought, you know what? I got into college, into uni with a dream of becoming the first female gas engineer in sub-Saharan Africa. That was my dream. And then imagine my shock when my results came out, and for the first time, I was having D's and E's. I was a distinction student. I thought I was missing out in a healthy relationship, and then my academics began to suffer, and my parents did not have enough money to make up for the extra tutorials I possibly would have needed. It just was a mess. And so I felt, no, I didn't want to disgrace my parents. Maybe I should end it all. But that was when I met Christ, really, and everything changed. Yeah.
I mean, it's so hard for people to understand that moment when you feel that your life has no worth.
Mm,
I
true.
have goosebumps just hearing you
Oh my
say it
God. Wow.
because I can't imagine not meeting you. And even,
Right.
I mean, the moment I saw you, Mo, you had a light around you.
Wow.
And we didn't talk that much. There was a whole lot going on. There were thousands of people at this conference. But
Right.
when I saw you, there was so much light in you that
Uh-oh.
I knew the world needed to get to
Wow.
know Mo.
Thank you.
And it's
Thank you.
beautiful that you would be willing to share this and the way that others benefit. I often say we go through challenges in our lives so that we can help others through challenges, because if we can't identify, if our lives were all perfect,
Mhm.
how would we be relatable to anyone?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
I want to get to the good stuff though now, Mo. And so you talked about being a part of an international company. It's Coca-Cola. It's one that not some little bitty company. It's huge. And I saw on Facebook you recently celebrated a wedding anniversary with a special someone. So
Absolutely.
there is life after trauma, right?
True. I like that. I like how you put it. And let me tell you, so after that, that relationship and my whole experience, having to forgive and all that, I remember, graduating from school, and this gentleman reached out to me um, about 11 years after to actually ask that I forgive, because he had some moments, and then he had some reflections to realize that he really hurt me. He really didn't, treat me right and all that. But by then, of course, I was married. I mean, happily married and all that. But I think one of the lessons I took away from that relationship that helped me get into my relationship with my husband, it's by by the time I came out of that relationship, you couldn't tell me my life did not have no meaning. You couldn't tell me there wasn't a purpose to my life. You couldn't like convince me that I wasn't on a journey to greatness. In fact, one of the realizations I saw was how little I thought of myself. I didn't realize how big I was, how big of a deal I am to God. And that was a discovery for me, such that when I met my husband, I wasn't settling for less. I was clear on what my life was about. And that's why he's so supportive, because by the time he met me on my path. He met me on my path. So it has helped my relationship with him in making decisions. So if I tell him I'm taking a loan to develop myself, he trusts my judgments. You know what I mean? And so he supports my development. He supports my decisions with my career. And it's been amazing. We were 11 years yesterday, and I'm really grateful, to God for how far, or how the events of my life have turned out to be, and I'm just super excited that we're 11 years.
Congratulations. And these 11 years might not have felt so sweet if you hadn't had some sour in the past.
I agree. I agree. Sometimes pain is not good when you're going through it, and we do understand that. But pain sometimes reveals the value of an experience. It reveals the value of that experience. It makes me, I mean, I met my husband, and the way he cares for me, I feel spoiled, really. I feel so spoiled. I named one of my kids, I have found God's care.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? I mean, for us in Africa, names have meaning. So every name has a meaning. Like my name, my full name is Modupe Bitioluwaromilowode, meaning I'm grateful for how far God has brought me. That's the meaning of my name. So when I was going to name my twin girls, one of them I actually called her Ikeolua, which means God's care. I
Hmm.
have found God's care. And it's as a result of the experience I've had with my husband, from courtship up until now. He's a great guy, and I'm super grateful.
We love those great guys.
Thank
I'm about to
you.
celebrate 30 years of marriage, Mo.
My God. You are an elder. I respect you.
We try, we try.
Thank
We
you.
fail and we learn and we fail and we grow and we
True.
learn and we grow.
You're
And
right.
it's so nice to be able to do it together, Mo. I know we're running out of time. Is there anything else you want to empower and equip people with before I let you get back to your day?
So I want to tell women, or everyone, or anyone out there, all right, you are enough.
Mm.
You are enough. I realized that, because of the journey I've had in life, I had some reflections a while ago, and I realized that oftentimes it's easier for us to project our weaknesses more than we project our strengths. And so that is what is responsible for people having low self-esteem. You know what I mean? Because you're focused too much on what you have been told you can do well, what you believe you can do well. But I think it's high time we started to focus on the things that we do well. It doesn't matter if it is one thing. And you need to focus on that thing long enough, well enough, nurture it, and then you watch your self-esteem boom. Don't try to play to your weakness. Don't try to play around people who project your weakness each time. It doesn't help you. All right, you are enough. That's one thing you have is enough for you, to make a difference in this world. So that's what I would like to say, right?
Oh, Mo. I just, it's amazing how God brings people together. and I've been working on this project, and I was praying, who needs to tell their story? Who do I need to talk to
Wow.
share? And he brought you back to my mind.
Wow.
And I'm just so grateful that, we haven't seen each other since 2016, that you were
Yeah.
kind enough to answer my request and to share that incredibly powerful message. And I knew none of this.
Oh,
I
wow.
didn't
Yes,
know anything of your background, all
absolutely.
good things that have happened since then, since
Right.
2016, that you've shared on social media. And
Mhm.
I couldn't be more honored and grateful that you would share it with us. And I pray that it empowers others. And I pray that your blessings reach far and wide, and
Amen.
that your story can help others. And that dirty F word
Mhm.
is just a stepping stone to
It is.
success and significance.
Absolutely. Success and significance. I like that. Absolutely.
Well, that is it for the dirty F word for now. Please thank my dear friend Mo Lanre Akinison, formerly from Nigeria, but now a brand new, just 2 weeks old resident of the United Kingdom. We wish her all the best and look forward to
Thank you
hearing
so much,
great
Amy. All right. Thank you.